It's 12,000 years ago. You're a human. You're hungry, you're bored, and civilization hasn't been invented yet, so there's genuinely nothing to do. So you do what every human in history has done when they're bored and hungry. You put a random plant in your mouth. Most of the time, this is a terrible idea. Sometimes it kills you. Sometimes it just ruins your afternoon. But every once in a while, something very strange happens. The colors get louder. Time goes soft. A rock starts giving you life advice. Congratulations! You've just discovered that the world is full of plants that can hijack your brain, and you have accidentally kicked off one of the oldest, weirdest, most human obsessions of all time, the desire to feel different. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you about ancient humans. They weren't just inventing farming and fire and the wheel. They were also getting absolutely wrecked, on purpose, for thousands of years, long before written history. So the real question isn't, did ancient humans get high? It's what were they using? And the answer is so much stranger than you think. We like to imagine getting high is a modern vice. It is not. The urge to alter your own mind might be older than agriculture, older than the wheel, possibly older than our species. And the evidence isn't a guess. It's buried in caves, baked into ancient pottery, and detectable in the actual hair of 2,000-year-old mummies. Archaeologists can now scan a mummy's hair and tell you what it was on. Which means, somewhere out there, is a scientist whose actual job is drug testing the dead. So let's go back to the beginning and figure out exactly what our ancestors were doing to their brains, starting with the discovery that changed everything and probably started as a horrible accident. It almost certainly started with fruit. Picture it, some fruit falls off a tree, lands in a puddle, and sits there. Wild yeast drifts in and starts eating the sugar, and yeast, in its infinite generosity, poops out two things: carbon dioxide and alcohol. This is fermentation, and nobody invented it. Nature was making booze long before we showed up. So one day, an ancient human finds this mushy, bubbling, slightly off fruit, shrugs, and eats it anyway. Because again, no civilization, low standards. And 20 minutes later, they feel amazing and confused. And they tell literally everyone. There's even a theory for this. The drunken monkey hypothesis, which suggests our attraction to alcohol goes back millions of years to primate ancestors who ate fermented fruit and evolved to actually process the alcohol, which means the reason you can enjoy a drink is a survival adaptation for finding ripe fruit. Your hangover is a fossil. But here's where it gets genuinely wild. Some archaeologists think alcohol didn't just come along after farming. They think it might have helped cause it. The theories is called beer before bread. Humans may have first started planting grain, not to make food, but to make beer. Civilization itself might have been built, in part, because a bunch of people really wanted to get the group together for a drink. At a site called Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, one of the oldest monuments on Earth, older than the pyramids by thousands of years. Researchers found massive stone vats with chemical traces suggesting fermented beverages. People were gathering at a sacred site, possibly to build, feast, and drink before they had even fully settled down to farm. The party may have come first, but alcohol was just the beginning. Because humans did not stop at "the fruit makes me happy." They went looking, and they found a pharmacy growing in the dirt. Take the opium poppy, humans have been using it for at least 6,000 years. Ancient farming communities in Europe grew it deliberately. We found the seeds. The Sumerians allegedly called it the joy plant, which is either very sweet or deeply concerning depending on how you read it. Then there's cannabis. Burned cannabis residue has been found in ancient braziers in Central Asia at ritual sites thousands of years old. Evidence that people were getting together, heating it up, and inhaling the smoke on purpose as part of ceremonies for the dead. There's ephedra, a natural stimulant, basically ancient energy drink. There's the blue lotus of ancient Egypt, soaked in wine, painted all over their tombs, mildly psychoactive and deeply fashionable. There are the mushrooms, evidence of psychoactive fungus use scattered across prehistoric rock art, ancient people painting exactly what they saw, which was apparently a lot. And then there's the snuff. In South America, archaeologists found elaborate carved trays and tubes for inhaling powdered psychoactive plants, the oldest dating back over 3,000 years. These weren't casual. They were beautiful, ritual objects, People took this seriously. And this is where we get our best proof, because plants rot, pottery breaks, but chemistry lingers. In a study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, researchers took hair samples from ancient mummies of the Nazca people in Peru, buried between roughly 100 BC and 450 AD. Hair traps chemical traces of what a person consumed in the months before death. So the team essentially ran a toxicology report on people who died 2,000 years ago, and the results were remarkable. They found coca, the leaf chewed as a stimulant. They found harmine and harmaline, the signature chemicals of ayahuasca, the powerful hallucinogenic brew. And they found mescaline from the San Pedro cactus. Multiple substances in multiple individuals across a whole society. This wasn't one weird guy. This was a culture with sophisticated botanical knowledge, long-distance trade routes for these plants, and rituals built around them. Which raises the obvious question. Why? Why would people, for thousands of years across every continent, keep doing this? Often at real risk, sometimes as part of literal life and death ceremonies. What were they actually chasing? Here's the part that reframes everything. For most of human history, getting high wasn't recreational. It was sacred. To an ancient human with no science, no medicine, and no explanation for anything, an altered state of mind wasn't a party trick. It was a doorway. Suddenly, you could see things that weren't there, hear voices, feel like you'd left your body and touched something enormous. If you didn't know what a brain was, what would you call that? You'd call it the spirit world. You'd call it the gods. So these substances became the core of religion, medicine, and ritual. The shaman, the person who could take the plant, cross over, and come back with a message, was one of the most powerful people in the tribe. Getting high was a job, a holy one. There's even a genuinely serious, hotly debated theory, the stoned ape hypothesis, proposing that psychoactive plants played a role in the rapid development of the human mind itself. Most scientists are skeptical, and there's no solid proof. But the fact that it's even debatable tells you how deep this goes. We didn't just stumble onto these plants. We may have grown up alongside them, and plants weren't the only tool. Humans figured out you could reach the same place without eating anything at all. Fasting, chanting, drumming for hours, spinning until you dropped, sitting in a dark cave until the visions came. The goal was always the same: escape the ordinary mind, even for a moment. The plants were just the fastest route. So stack it all up. Fermented fruit that made civilization worth building. Poppies the Sumerians called joy. Cannabis smoke rising off ancient altars. Cactus and vine and mushroom and lotus. Carved trays for sacred powders. Toxicology reports written in 2,000-year-old hair. None of this was random. It's a single, unbroken thread running through every human culture that has ever existed, on every continent, in every era, with no contact between them. Peoples who never met, separated by oceans and thousands of years, all independently arrived at the same conclusion. There are plants that open a door, and we would very much like to go through it. That is not a habit, that's not a vice. That's a feature of being human. The urge to occasionally leave your own head is as universal as language, as music, as burying our dead. It might be one of the things that makes us human. So the next time you have a glass of wine to unwind, or a cup of coffee to wake up, because yes, caffeine counts, that's a psychoactive drug you probably had this morning. The next time you do anything to nudge your own mind in a different direction, understand what you're actually doing. You're not being modern. You're not being weak. You're doing something almost unimaginably old. You are reaching for the exact same door your ancestors reached to for 12,000 years ago, around a fire, holding a fermented fruit, watching the colors get louder. They didn't have the words for dopamine or serotonin. They just knew that sometimes the ordinary world wasn't enough, and that hidden in the plants around them were tiny keys to somewhere else. They chased it. They built rituals around it. They painted it on cave walls so we'd know. And here you are, same brain, same restlessness, same quiet wish, every now and then, to feel just a little bit different than you do right now. The plants changed, the reasons didn't. Turns out getting high wasn't a detour from the human story. It was baked in from the very beginning, one of the oldest, strangest, most stubbornly human things we've ever done. and we're still doing it tonight. Same brain, same door, 12,000 years later.